Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and their professional teams struggle to find great capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way to exit highly appreciated assets tax deferred so you create, preserve, and grow your wealth. I'm your co-host, Pearson York, filling in for Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best wealth, business, real estate, and leadership individuals in the world, share ideas, deal stories, and inspirations so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. As always, we're streaming on expertcresecrets.com, the Capital Gains Tax Solutions YouTube channel. And today, I'm super excited about our next guest. He's a financial advisor, been in the space for about 7 years, and has a lot of knowledge and wisdom on how to defer taxes and has really made tax strategy a part of his business. So if you guys could just welcome James Jerica. James, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So James, how'd you get started in money?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I didn't I didn't exactly know where I wanted to go. And I got an email one night towards the end of my senior year from a really big company. And they asked me to come in for an interview. They said they found my resume online. And I got really excited because I didn't have too much lined up from that aspect about job prospects getting out of school. Went in, learned about the business. They said, hey, come in, be a financial advisor. We'll teach you everything you need to know. And I fell in love with it. And I really enjoyed working with that company, spent a lot of my time of my career there. And they were great to me, taught me a lot, got me a lot of experience and education. And I really just fell in love with the space of being able to help people for a living, especially on something that they often don't know much about, which is money and trying to save for their future. And it's something that people always have questions on. So I'm excited that my job is helping people with something that they need help with constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I believe everyone's been given a set of gifts, spiritual gifts, strengths, superpowers, whatever you want to call them, right? What are one or two gifts or strengths or superpowers that you have that have led you to be successful?
Yeah, so I think a big one is so both my parents are teachers. My wife's a teacher, my sister is a teacher, and that kind of runs in my family. And I think a lot of the times when uh, people meet with financial advisors, it's very easy for an advisor to talk, with big financial terms and sort of talk over people's heads and try and make things complicated. And I think at the end of the day, what people really need is somebody to teach them about their finances so that they have a better understanding of what they're doing and why they're doing it and why it makes sense to put money here, there, or save or invest in a certain way. And so I think I was always probably supposed to be a teacher, and I ended up teaching it kind of in a different capacity that I really enjoy.
Awesome. So you like to really take the complicated and distill it down, make it simple, and then educate and teach people. And by doing that, you build that rapport, you build that trust, right? You get them comfortable, right? And then they view you as an expert, and then you're able to go ahead and take that and you know do what you need to do in order to capitalize. Awesome. Okay, so along those lines, right? You're talking before the show about opportunity zones. So teach me what is the play right now with these op zones?
Yeah, so opportunity zones they came about fairly recently, and it was brought about because there's in every major city you're going to have parts of that city that are kind of run down.
Yep.
And so a bipartisan bill came out that had support on both sides, which makes it a really strong bill. And it got a lot of backing to offer tax incentives for individuals to come in and develop and revitalize different parts of major cities, areas that do need help rebuilding, but the government doesn't want to come in and be the ones to actually do the construction or do all that
Right.
work. They effectively just offer the tax incentives so that other individuals will do that. And so I think the big thing when you look at the tax code is 99% of it tells you how not to pay taxes. Really,
Yeah, definitely.
very little of it tells you how to pay taxes. There's this big chunk that tells you how not to. And so when you understand that tax code and that system, it's there and it provides incentives. And so the government incentivizes, real estate, energy, other things like that. And so when you follow those, you get rewarded.
Yeah, absolutely. I had that conversation with another guest actually. We were talking about that whole idea of, there's like 2 pages in the whole code that tells you like what you got to pay for taxes, and then there's like a billion other pages that tell you how not to do it, right? Because
Yeah, exactly.
those guys want to pay taxes, so they just write the bills and create the loopholes. So if you play like them with their rules, that's how you get out of it. So, and so basically, so just for the listeners, right? An opportunity zone is just a distressed area that needs revitalization, where the government just incentivizes you to go ahead and invest money, and they give you in that form of is come in tax incentives.
That's correct, and they are
Cool.
zoned out.
Yep.
In most major cities. There's very specific areas that you can do that work in.
Okay, cool. So what can I do with it? What's the value of an op zone, and what are the incentives that you can do? What are the benefits of using an opportunity zone?
Yeah, so you can really get into it 2 different ways. You can go in and actually find a zone, let's say in your local city. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, so there's a few in this city. Go there, get with a real estate developer, draw plans, try and figure all that out, and you can get into it that way. Or on the other side, on my realm, working with clients and helping them save for their future, we have it in basically a securitized form where you can just invest money. You never have to look at it again, but you get all those benefits, the tax benefits and everything that comes along with it. Because the big major advantage that is currently on the table is you're able to take capital gains that are owed today and not have to pay them until 2027. And so if you have a big bill, let's say you sell a business and you have $1 million gain on it. So you're looking long-term capital gains rates, you're looking $200,000 of taxes owed. So
if you're in Nevada or Florida.
Yeah.
Right? California, you're looking at 370,000.
Yeah, you're looking at these huge tax bills. So what we could do instead, you're going to pay those taxes eventually, but we could take that amount or really any other amount. If you want to put in $1 million, $2 million, you can. You put it into the opportunity zone, and you don't have to pay those taxes for 5 or until right now it'd be 5 years. You don't pay them until 2027.
Okay.
And so instead of me paying the 200,000 today, I pay it in 2027. There's actually the 2 main proponents that got this bill through in the first place. They're working on trying to extend that out to 2029, which makes the deal even better.
Yep.
2027 rolls around, you need to pay that 200,000 that you owed in 2022, right? You could take it out of the fund, or you can cover it with outside assets as well. Either situation works.
Okay.
So you get to defer it. The other big advantage is you hold it for 10 years total.
Mm-hmm.
So I hold it from 2022 to 2032. 100% of my gains are now tax-free.
Okay, so let me stop you. So just so I understand. So you have 2 transactions, right?
Correct.
You sell a business. Now, does the opportunity zone work for assets, all assets, correct? Anything with a capital gains?
Anything with a capital, if it's considered a capital asset, generates capital gains. So business, crypto, stock, you name it.
Okay. So you take your transaction, right? Does it work for a primary home?
It does. Anything that generates what's considered a capital gain.
Okay, awesome. So similar to the DST. So that's awesome.
Similar, yeah.
Okay, so you have a capital asset, right? A capital gain on some sort of transaction. Let's call it $1 million, right? The gain. We'll use just the federal rate of 200,000 to 20%. You have a $200,000 tax bill. You put it into this op zone. Okay. Now I can put it into an op zone security or fund, pretty much with you, right? So I put my my entire million with you, or I only have to put the gain, the 200,000 gain?
You only have to put the gain,
Okay.
or
So
you only have to put the tax that was owed.
okay. So the rest of it, right? I take constructive receipt of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that would trigger the tax though. Correct.
That would.
Okay. So I take it, right? I trigger the tax, but I get to defer that tax, that 200,000 for 5 years. Now, that means that I get to basically capitalize on the investment. It's basically an interest-free loan from the government at that point for 5 years, right?
Yes, it's better than interest-free because you actually get to earn interest on it yourself.
Right. So you get to play with that, right, and do what you want. And now, what are your typical returns? I know they're probably all over the board, depending upon where you go. But
Yeah, so the main fund that we're working with, they have a targeted return of about 9% net of fees.
okay, so you put your $200,000 in, right? You're earning 9%. So what is that? Almost a little bit under $20,000 a year on that money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in 5 years, compounded, you're up.
Okay.
You're up 100,000. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So you basically eliminate half of your gain by taking that gain, putting it into the op zone fund, and then go. But then the kicker is that in 2027, right, that money has to be paid back, either taken out of the fund or paid for by another outside source.
Other assets. Correct.
Okay. So no matter what, that tax has to be paid because you took money. You took that money. Okay. Now, if you were to then come out of the asset, right? Come out of the fund. Does that mean that you didn't last the 10 years because you only lasted the 5? And are you going to trigger another tax?
So you could on that end, that's where it's probably best to cover that with outside money.
Okay.
It really, that's the best long-term strategy.
Okay.
Because that's how you're going to gain the most tax efficiencies. Because again, you compound that out over 10 years or longer. Right. You can hold these right now. It's on the docket. You can hold them all the way through 2047. Okay. So we have a 25-year time horizon on these pretty amazing funds. They really aren't going to be around forever. And we're just able to enjoy a lot of tax benefits.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if you leave it in for 10 years, right, and you do decide to pull out that point, you've hit your benchmark and you no longer you don't have a capital gain on all of the compounded interest that you earned throughout the entirety of the time your money was invested. Is that correct?
That's correct. So another simple way to look at it is if you just wanted to use it, you weren't trying to defer any capital gains. You just think, I have money, I want to invest, and I love the idea of having something tax-free. Yep. We take 500,000, we put it in, maybe you're 50, 55, and you hold that out till you're 65, 70, getting ready to retire, and all of that would compound out for you tax-free.
Awesome. Okay. So two different strategies. However, both of them have serious tax advantages.
Major tax advantages, because it's also a great way to get real estate exposure in your portfolio. Mm-hmm. So from just diversification and good portfolio construction, it's a very effective way to do that as well.
Okay, awesome. So what, from a tax standpoint then, right, in these opportunity zones, can you 1031 into them? Is that how it works? You do a 1031 or what's the situation?
1031, you have 180 days from the time you actually finalize a sale. You have 180 days to get the money into an opportunity zone, but you don't need to necessarily. The nice thing about this, the fund strategy, is that this fund is working with zones all over the United States. Got it. I don't have to go out and find them. I don't have to go out and pick it and meet a developer and come up with a plan. I just say, hey, James, I have a $200,000 tax bill and I don't really want to pay it right now. What do we do? And we can just access this fund, and it's a pretty simple transaction and process from there.
Awesome. So the major benefits then is you still have a time constraint like you would with a 1031. However, It doesn't have to be the like kind, and you don't have to go out and find the deal because you have access to all of these funds that are earning that 9% pref, net of all the fees. And you can basically just roll that right into it and not have to worry about any of the tax consequences right now. You can defer for 5 years or whatever until you figure out how you want to pay it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay. So no 1031. So what is your experience with the 1031? What's been your biggest frustration with the 1031?
So the 1031, you do kind of get put in a time crunch where you have to identify the property. So sometimes I think its biggest disadvantage could be when people are maybe forced into a sale for a whole host of reasons, and they didn't plan on selling it, or they didn't necessarily want to sell it, but they have to for, again, some random reason, and they're just unable to find a good property to do that like kind exchange into.
Yeah, you never want to be a motivated buyer.
Yeah.
That's the worst place to be. Man, oh man. Okay, cool. So we were talking before the show, and you mentioned DST. What were you talking about?
So with the deferred sales trust, I mean, these two strategies, they rhyme in a lot of ways. They have a lot of certain characteristics. Obviously, with the deferred sales trust, you get a bit more liquidity, you get more flexibility in terms of the investments that's going in there. It makes sense when you have that more active approach. There are certain people out of there that just don't want to be that involved. They, for whatever reason, they got a huge return on some asset, and they are just looking to park the money somewhere. They're just looking to invest it for the future, but they don't have any interest in being a real active participant in
Right.
that, and they just want somebody else to handle it for them. And this is for that type of individual.
So how do deferred sales trust, not to be confused with a Delaware statutory trust, everybody? So that's a 1031 into a REIT. But can you use these opportunity zones, right, and deferred sales trusts together?
Yeah, you could be able to. So you can set these up to be owned because these are really owned in a non-qualified brokerage account. I mean, they're owned in a very simplified investment holding. It's nothing fancy on that end. So as long as the trust is able to hold it, it would work. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So I need to dive more into how the opportunity zone would fit in with the deferred sales trust strategy, because that's one of the beautiful things about the DST is you don't have these time horizons that you have to deal with, and you
Yeah.
get all of your money up front. So like in an opportunity zone like fund, right? Are you earning that 9%? Are you able to take distributions with that, or does that have to just compound back into the fund?
So you're locked up for at least 4 years,
Okay.
first time in, and then there's quarterly liquidity events moving forward after that.
Okay.
Ideally, ideally, this is a long-term hold. This is
Gotcha.
money that you really don't plan on using. I think another cool thing about it too is since it's in real estate is notoriously very tax friendly. You get a
Mm-hmm.
lot of tax benefits.
Okay.
And so the fund will actually pass through tax credits. So if the fund generates income and spits off dividends that you take, it can offset those, or it can pass through tax credits and offset other passive income streams you have, whether that's crypto mining, rental real estate, anything that's considered passive income can be offset by the fund's pass through tax credits.
That's super interesting. The DST works similar with that when you do a JV and go into like another piece of real estate. And so that's super interesting. So like, for example, let's say they do the 10-year hold, right? They put the 200,000 right into your fund, or they put 500,000 into your fund just because they want to, a tax-free, investment, earning that 9%. And they start taking distributions after your 4 quarterly distributions or whatever. They can leave it in and let it compound, or they can take it, or they could take a combination thereof where they're taking quarterly distributions, but they're offsetting that gain with something like a cost seg study, or the depreciation that's flowing through, or something like that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Awesome.
And after the 10th year, it's You can take money out, let it sit, do whatever you need to do on that end, and it's going to be very tax efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's amazing. Okay. When would somebody want to use an opportunity zone over a deferred sales trust?
I'd say it's probably best when they just don't want to be heavily involved in the investments. When they just want to set it, forget it, somebody manages it, they don't need to worry. They like the idea of having it in real estate. Maybe they like the idea, especially of like, oh, I'm helping build up and make certain parts of cities nicer, better for that community. Um, but for there, I come across people in my practice where they come into some money or they have money, they've done a great job, and they just want somebody else to handle it, and they don't have much interest in managing it themselves. Is a great passive way to do that.
So this is better for somebody. So the DST is a lot better for people who are active, who want to go out
Yeah,
and do active deals and um, continue to generate and create more wealth, and also preserve it, right?
yeah,
Because there's so much flexibility with the DST that you get to, you can do things like partner it up with these op zone funds and all that kind of stuff, right? So it might not be a question of either or, but like, how can we use them both in tandem with each other in order to maximize everything? So you could be, I mean, so there's a property I'm actually going to be doing like a case study on out here.
yeah,
I live in Newport Beach, and this property was bought for $500,000 right on the sand in 1985 or something like that.
oh wow,
So they've renovated it a couple times, right? But 500 grand, right? The thing's worth 7 million easy, even if
yeah,
they put $1 million into it, right?
yeah,
Um, it's a duplex, but they're trying to rent this thing out right now for $6,500 a month.
oh wow,
So if let's just call it like a 7,000 on both sides. Let's say they get 7 on both sides of this duplex, and they get, that's 14 grand a month, and then
hmm,
times 12 is what, like $164,000, $170,000 a year, something like that, around there, right? If they were to sell that asset and place it into a DST, they own it free and clear. They'd put all, minus their closing costs, right? Commission fees and all that kind of stuff. They're putting $6.5 million into a DST, right?
yeah,
Where they're earning an 8, 9, 10% pref on that money. They're making $540,000 just on accessing that liquidity without having a mortgage or whatever, right? Pair that with putting it into things like an opportunity zone, right? Taking a portion of it, 2 million of it, putting it into an op zone fund, right? Like you're talking about, for real estate or even like energy and oil drilling and those types of, like, we didn't even get into that whole conversation, but that's a whole nother thing where
yeah,
there's even more, tax benefits and stuff like that you can leverage. But you start getting this really powerful picture
yeah,
of tax strategies, and you see how these people continue to not only protect their downside but generate more and more and more wealth by saving. I mean, otherwise, they sell that building for $7 million. They're at least 2.8. They're in California. Depreciation and capture. They're almost $3 million, like,
yeah.
paying tax. Like, that's half of your gain. Like, that's nuts. Where you could
It
be earning
is.
8% on, $3 million is
It's a nice.
significant amount of money.
It
So
is.
it's awesome to talk and go through these strategies with people like James and who have these ideas and how we work together. And I think that what I really want to hammer home here is that, like, the the team is really, right, the value. Because I get with James and I'm like, hey James, I don't know op zones like op zones, but I got this client that's got this DST, right? And I want to bring you in. How can I use this DST with your op zone fund in order to maximize their wealth, right? And vice versa, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. And so it's just, it's awesome to see. And if you guys want to learn more about James, where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me just on LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me personally. And then you can find my RIA at wealthwatchadvisors.com.
Yeah.
And come there, check us out. We do so much more than just opportunity zones. I know it's a really great thing that we offer, but it all comes about as how does this fit into your holistic financial plan? And that's what we help with.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys are interested in learning more about the Deferred Sales Trust, you can come to our mastermind, which is every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. James, I'll send you a calendar invite after this call. But that's what we do there, right? We get people on like James, and we get people on like Jake Miller and Brett Swarts, and that are just geniuses. And we come together and we talk through, hey, situations, plans, deal stories, and we come, bring your people, bring your financial advisors. Like, James is one of the few financial advisors that I talked to that have actually known about the Deferred Sales Trust and how it works and whatnot. That's value, and when you're able to offer those things, like, and not be afraid to kind of step out of your comfort zone and learn new things and not get like ego blocked and all this kind of stuff, right? Like, man, you can add so much value. So come, ask questions, get on, work through specific situations and problems, and that's what it's all about. So, and you guys can learn more about that by going to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. If you guys want to unlock the power of DST opportunity zones, and even 1031s when they're appropriate, right? Everything has their place. So that's you can find out all about that at capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Exit like true millionaires. So, James, we're running out of time here, so I don't want to take up too much more, but I wanted to just quickly get into the lightning round with you. So,
Okay.
ready to go?
Ready.
All right, cool. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book is The Go-Giver.
Go-Giver. Who wrote it?
John David Mann.
John David Mann. Okay. What's your favorite leadership quote?
Leadership quote. I don't know if it's a quote, but it's more just a style of servant leadership.
Love
about really just leading from the top. And yeah, I learned that a lot from my very first managing partner.
Awesome. What are you most curious about right now?
Obviously, I think everybody is about kind of the state of the economy and the way everything's going.
Sure.
It's every day there's a new headline, right?
Yeah.
Every day there's a new headline, and I don't think anybody really knows where it's going.
No clue. Everyone's crystal balls in the shop. I'll tell you who's making the most money is those crystal ball people.
Yeah, they are.
Their things, man. Because no one knows what the heck's going on here. They're all broken, apparently. Dang. All right, cool. One more time, James, where can people find you?
Yes, you can find us at wealthwatchadvisors.com, and look forward to helping as many people as I can.
Awesome. Wealthwatchadvisors.com. And guys, if you're interested in learning more about the Deferred Sales Trust opportunity zones and all that kind of stuff, come to our mastermind. You can sign up for that at capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. James, any parting words?
Just thank you so much for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
No, thanks for coming on, man. It was an awesome conversation. I learned a ton. I know our listeners got a ton of value out of you. So thank you so much for coming on and giving us your time. And thanks again, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and their professional teams struggle to clarify great capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as opportunity zones, deferred sales trust, 1031s, the best way to exit your highly appreciated assets tax deferred so you create, preserve, and grow your wealth. Please rate, review, subscribe, like, comment, share. Visit our websites. What am I missing? Notification bells. All that YouTube algorithm and Facebook algorithm mumbo jumbo that they feed us all today. Watch our videos, and we'll be sure to bust out more content every time we're on here, so you won't miss anything. So thanks again, James. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll talk to you in the next one.